I never thought a simple visit to the dentist would unravel a secret my family had kept buried for 11 years. A secret that would force me to question everything I thought I knew about love, truth, and what it really means to be a parent. It started with my son's baby tooth that refused to fall out. But what the X-ray revealed that day, it changed our lives forever. My name is Sarah, and I live in a quiet suburb outside Seattle with my husband Mark and our 11-year-old son Danny. We're not wealthy, but we've built a comfortable life. Mark works as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, and I teach 3rd grade at the local elementary school. Our home is nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom ranch with a backyard where Danny practices soccer and Mark grows tomatoes that never quite turn out right. Danny is our only child. We tried for years to have another baby, but after 3 miscarriages, we accepted that our family was complete as it was. And honestly, Danny was enough. He's always been this bright, curious kid with Mark's dark eyes and my stubborn streak. He loves dinosaurs, hates broccoli, and has this laugh that fills our entire house with warmth. Mark and I met in college, married young, and built our relationship on honesty and trust. At least that's what I always believed. We were those people who finished each other's sentences, who could communicate with just a look across a crowded room. I thought I knew everything about him. Every story from his childhood, every scar, every fear. I was wrong. My mother-in-law, Patricia, lives 20 minutes away in a senior community. She's always been kind to me, but there's a formality to our relationship, a careful distance that I attributed to her reserved personality. She visits every Sunday for dinner, always bringing dessert, always leaving by 8 o'clock sharp. She dotes on Danny, but in this peculiar, almost wistful way that I'd noticed but never questioned. Until that day in the dentist's office. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October when Danny came home from school complaining about his tooth. One of his upper molars had been loose for weeks, wiggling back and forth, but it wouldn't come out. The adult tooth beneath was trying to push through, causing him pain and making it difficult to eat. "Mom, it really hurts," he said, his eyes watering as he poked at the stubborn tooth with his tongue. I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Morrison, our family dentist, for the following day. Mark couldn't make it because of a crucial meeting at work, so it was just Danny and me in the waiting room, flipping through old magazines and listening to soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. When we finally got called back, Dr. Morrison examined Danny's mouth with his usual cheerful efficiency. But then his expression changed. His smile faded into something more serious, more puzzled. "I think we should take an X-ray," he said, his tone suddenly professional and distant. "Just to see what's going on beneath the gum line." I felt a flutter of anxiety in my chest, but I pushed it down. It was just a tooth, after all. Kids lose teeth. It's the most natural thing in the world. Danny was brave during the X-ray, holding still with that heavy lead apron draped over his small body. I stood behind the protective barrier with Dr. Morrison, watching the digital image slowly appear on the screen. And that's when I saw it, or rather didn't see it. Dr. Morrison leaned closer to the monitor, his finger tracing something on the screen. He was quiet for a long moment, too long. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. He turned to look at me, and there was something in his eyes. Confusion, concern, maybe even pity. "Mrs. Richardson, I need to ask you something, and I apologize if this seems unusual." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Has Danny ever had any major dental work done? Any surgeries or procedures when he was very young?" "No," I said immediately. "Nothing like that. Why?" He turned back to the screen, and I moved closer to look. He pointed to the area where the loose tooth was, this baby tooth. "According to this X-ray, there's no adult tooth underneath it. But that's not the unusual part." He zoomed in on the image. "Mrs. Richardson, this tooth, it's not a baby tooth at all. It's an adult tooth. And based on the root structure and development, it's been there since he was born." The world seemed to tilt sideways. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. "What do you mean? How is that possible?" Dr. Morrison's professional mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw genuine perplexity cross his face. "It's extremely rare, but it happens. Some children are born with natal teeth, teeth that are present at birth or erupt within the first month of life. But here's what's unusual. He pulled up another image on the screen when showing Danny's full dental x-ray. According to his dental records from when he was 3 years old, this same tooth was documented as a primary tooth. A baby tooth. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was saying. So what are you telling me? I'm telling you that either there was a mistake in his early dental records, or... He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Richardson, is there any possibility that Danny had dental records from somewhere else before he came to our practice? We've been coming here since he was 2, I said, my voice rising slightly. You have all his records. There's nothing else. But even as I said it, a cold feeling began spreading through my chest. Because there was something, a memory I'd buried so deep, I'd almost forgotten it existed. When Danny was 6 months old, Mark had taken him to the doctor alone. Just a routine checkup, he'd said. I'd been recovering from a terrible flu, and Mark insisted I stay home and rest. When they came back, Danny had a small bandage on his gum. Mark said the doctor had noticed a small growth. Nothing serious, just a benign tissue overgrowth that they'd removed as a precaution. I'd been too sick to ask many questions, and by the next day, the bandage was gone, and I'd forgotten all about it. But now, standing in that dentist's office with my son, humming to himself in the chair, unaware that anything was wrong, I felt the foundation of my reality beginning to crack. Can I have copies of these x-rays? I heard myself ask. And his old records? Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. Of course. I'll have Jenny print everything out for you. He paused. Mrs. Richardson, I recommend you see a specialist, a pediatric oral surgeon who can better explain what might be happening here. I can give you a referral. I took the envelope of records with shaking hands. Danny was fine, Dr. Morrison assured him. The tooth would need to come out, but we'd schedule that with the specialist. Danny bounced out of the office, happy to have escaped without any drilling or pain, completely oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in my world. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with impossible thoughts. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. There had to be a logical explanation. A mix-up in records, a medical anomaly that was unusual but explainable. But I needed to talk to Mark. He came home that evening at his usual time, 6:30, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. Danny was upstairs doing homework, and I was waiting in the kitchen, the envelope of dental records spread across the table like accusatory evidence. Hey, babe, Mark said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. How'd the dentist go? I didn't return the kiss. I just looked at him, really looked at him, searching his face for something I couldn't name. We need to talk. The shift in his demeanor was instant. His body tensed, his eyes darted to the papers on the table, and for just a fraction of a second, I saw something flash across his face. Fear. What's wrong? He asked, but his voice was too careful, too controlled. I told him everything Dr. Morrison had said, about the tooth that wasn't a baby tooth, about the records that didn't match, about the impossibility of it all, and as I spoke, I watched my husband's face drain of color. Mark, I said slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What happened when you took Danny to the doctor when he was 6 months old? The truth. He sank into a chair, his hands covering his face. When he finally looked up at me, his eyes were filled with tears. I never wanted you to know, he whispered. God, Sarah, I never wanted you to find out this way. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. Find out what? He took a shuddering breath, and when he spoke, his voice broke. Danny isn't mine. Biologically, I mean. He's not my biological son. The words hung in the air between us like smoke, choking me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room seemed to spin, and I gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling. What are you talking about? My voice came out as barely a whisper. Mark was crying now, tears streaming down his face as words tumbled out in a rush. Before we got married, Sarah, that summer you went to visit your sister in Portland for 3 weeks, remember? We'd had that big fight about whether we were ready to get married, and you needed space. And I was so scared I was going to lose you, I remembered. We'd been together for 2 years and Mark had proposed, but I'd panicked. I was only 22, and marriage felt enormous and terrifying. I'd gone to stay with my sister Emma to clear my head, to figure out what I wanted. I was devastated, Mark continued, his voice thick with emotion. I thought it was over. I went to a bar with some friends from work and I made the biggest mistake of my life. There was a woman there. I was drunk and stupid and heartbroken and it only happened once. One night, I woke up the next morning hating myself and I swore I'd never tell anyone, especially not you. My hands were shaking. I felt nauseous. Mark, 3 weeks later you came back, he said. You told me you were ready, that you wanted to marry me, that you loved me. And I was so happy, Sarah, so grateful. We got married 2 months later, and I thought that one night was behind me forever. But the word came out sharp, cutting. But 6 months after our wedding, my mom called me. She said a woman had contacted her asking for me. She wouldn't give her name, just said it was urgent. Mark's hands were trembling as he reached for a glass of water, but he didn't drink. Mom gave me the woman's number, and when I called, she told me she was pregnant, and that the baby was mine. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The room tilted, and I had to sit down. Her name was Rachel, Mark said softly. She was a graduate student, 25, working on her master's degree. She didn't want anything from me, she said. She just thought I had a right to know. She was planning to raise the baby alone, maybe give it up for adoption. Danny, I breathed, the realization crashing over me like a wave. Mark nodded, tears flowing freely now. She was 7 months pregnant when she told me. I didn't know what to do. I was terrified of losing you, but I also knew I couldn't just abandon a child. My child. So I told my mom everything, and we came up with a plan. Patricia knows? The betrayal of that cut almost as deep as everything else. Mom's the one who suggested it, Mark said. She said that Rachel was considering adoption anyway, and that maybe we could be the ones to adopt the baby. You and me. That way I could be in his life. But you'd never have to know about my mistake. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was too surreal, too calculated, too impossibly cruel. We'd been trying for a baby for over a year, with no success, Mark continued. You were getting worried, talking about seeing a fertility specialist. Mom reached out to Rachel, and at first Rachel said no. She couldn't imagine giving her baby to a couple where the father was a stranger who'd gotten her pregnant in a one-night stand. But I prompted again, my voice hollow. But Mom was persistent. She talked to Rachel, built a relationship with her, told her about us, about our marriage, about how much we wanted a child. Eventually, Rachel agreed to meet us. Well, She wanted to meet the woman who would be raising her son. Oh my God, I whispered. A memory surfacing like something from a dream. The coffee shop. That woman, Mark nodded. You thought she was just someone from the adoption agency. We told you it was an informal meeting, a chance to talk to a birth mother who was considering us. You were so kind to her, Sarah, so genuine. You talked about your childhood, your teaching, your dreams of being a mother. And Rachel, she cried. She told Mom later that she knew immediately that you were the right person to raise her son. I remembered that day. I'd been so nervous, so desperate to make a good impression. Rachel had been quiet, watchful, with sad eyes and hands that kept drifting to her swollen belly. I'd talked too much, trying to fill the silence, trying to convince her that I would love her baby with everything I had. And I had. God help me, I had loved Danny from the moment they placed him in my arms. The adoption was arranged through a private attorney, Mark said. Completely legal, completely by the book. Rachel signed over all her parental rights the day Danny was born. She held him once for just 5 minutes, and then she left. She made Mom promise that she'd never try to contact us again. She wanted a closed adoption, a clean break. But the tooth, I said, my mind struggling to connect the dots. What does the tooth have to do with any of this? Mark took a shaky breath. When Danny was born, he had a natal tooth. It's this rare genetic condition that Rachel had too. She was born with 2 teeth already in her mouth. The doctors wanted to remove Danny's tooth right away because natal teeth can be a choking hazard. but Rachel begged them to wait. She said it was the only thing Danny would have from her, the only proof that he was hers. So they didn't remove it. But you did, I said, understanding flooding through me. When he was 6 months old, the pediatrician kept warning us that it needed to come out, Mark said. It was loose and dangerous. But more than that, I was terrified that someone would notice, that you'd ask questions, that a dentist would see it and realize Danny had been born with it. So I had it extracted while you were sick. I thought I was erasing the last evidence. I had them falsify the dental records to show it was a primary tooth. I paid the dentist extra to keep quiet, but it grew back, I said, staring at the x-rays on the table. The permanent tooth was already there underneath. That's what Dr. Morrison saw, Mark nodded. I didn't know that could happen. I thought I'd taken care of it, that the secret was safe. We sat in silence for a long moment. Upstairs, I could hear Danny's music playing, some pop song he loved. He was humming along, happy and carefree, unaware that his entire world was built on a lie. Does Rachel want him back? I asked, my voice breaking on the words. Is that what this is? Is she going to come back and take him from me? No, Mark said firmly. Sarah, no. Rachel has never tried to contact us. Not once in 11 years. Mom kept tabs on her for a while. She finished her degree, moved to the East Coast, got married. She has 2 other children now. She made her choice, and she's at peace with it. But I'm not. The words exploded out of me, along with all the rage and fear and betrayal I'd been holding back. How could you do this to me, Mark? How could you lie to me for 11 years? Every time I looked at Danny, every time I thought about how much he looked like you, every time I thanked God that we'd been chosen to be his parents, it was all a lie. It wasn't a lie, Mark said desperately. Sarah, you are his mother. In every way that matters, you're his mother. You're the one who walked the floor with him when he had colic. You're the one who taught him to read, who kissed his scraped knees, who stayed up all night when he had the flu. You're the one he calls for when he has a nightmare. That's not a lie. That's real. But you lied about where he came from, I said, tears streaming down my face now. You lied about who he is. I lied about biology, Mark said. Not about love. Not about family. Danny is our son. He always has been, he always will be. The only thing that's changed is what you know, not what's true. I stood up abruptly, needing to move, needing to escape the suffocating weight of this conversation. I walked to the window and stared out at our backyard, at the swing set Mark had built when Danny was 3, at the vegetable garden that never quite produced the way we hoped. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked, my voice barely audible. At the beginning, when Rachel first contacted you, we could have faced it together, because I was a coward, Mark said simply, because I was terrified of losing you, because I knew that if you found out I'd cheated on you, even if it was during that break, you might never forgive me. And I couldn't lose you, Sarah. I couldn't. So instead you made me live a lie. I gave you the family you wanted, he said softly. I know that doesn't make it right. I know I should have been honest from the beginning. But Sarah, I have never regretted that decision, not once. Because Danny is the best thing that ever happened to me, to us. And yes, the circumstances of how he became our son are complicated and messy and built on my mistakes. But he is ours. He's always been ours. I turned to look at him, this man I'd loved for 15 years, this man I thought I knew better than anyone. And I realized I was looking at a stranger. I need time, I said. I need to think. Okay, Mark said, his voice small and broken. Whatever you need. And Mark, I met his eyes. We have to tell him. Danny deserves to know the truth. The color drained from Mark's face. Sarah, he's 11 years old. He doesn't need to know. He deserves to know, I repeated firmly. Not now. Not today. But when the time is right. Because I won't build our relationship on the same lies you built ours on. Over the next few weeks, I existed in a fog. I went through the motions of daily life, teaching my students, making dinner, helping Danny with homework, but inside I was screaming. I couldn't look at Mark without feeling a complicated tangle of anger, betrayal, and underneath it all, a love I couldn't simply switch off. I called my sister, Emma, and told her everything. She was the only person I could trust with this, and I needed someone to help me make sense of it all. I don't know what to do. I told her through tears. Every time I look at Danny, I see this beautiful boy that I love more than life itself. But now I also see this secret, this lie, and I don't know how to reconcile those two things. Emma was quiet for a moment before she spoke. Sarah, let me ask you something. If Mark had told you the truth from the beginning, before you adopted Danny, would you have still wanted to be his mother? I didn't have to think about it. Yes, absolutely yes. Then the only thing that's really changed is your trust in Mark, Emma said gently, not your relationship with Danny. What Mark did was wrong, and you have every right to be angry about that. But don't let his mistakes poison the 11 years of love you've built with your son. Her words helped, but they didn't heal the wound. That would take time, maybe years, maybe forever. I asked Patricia to come over one afternoon while Danny was at soccer practice. Mark was at work. It was just the two of us sitting at my kitchen table with cups of tea. Neither of us was drinking. I know you know, I said simply. Patricia's composed face crumbled. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never wanted. Did you think I couldn't handle the truth? I interrupted. Did you think I was so fragile that I needed to be protected from reality? No, Patricia said firmly. I thought you were strong enough to be a mother to a child who needed you. I thought you were capable of loving him completely, which you have. And I thought that telling you the truth would have hurt you unnecessarily. It wasn't your choice to make, I said. You're right, she agreed. It wasn't, and if I could go back and do it differently, I would. But Sarah, I can't regret the outcome. Danny has had a beautiful childhood because of you. You've given him everything a child could need. Mark made a terrible mistake, but from that mistake came something precious. Can't that also be true? I wanted to argue, to hold on to my anger, but Patricia's eyes were filled with such genuine remorse and love that I felt my resolve weakening. I need you to promise me something, I said. No more secrets, no more lies. If there's anything else I should know about Danny's background, about Rachel, about anything, I need to know now. Patricia nodded. There's nothing else. I promise you, Sarah, the adoption was legal and ethical. Rachel made her choice freely and with full counseling support. She's at peace with it, and she wants Danny to have a good life. That's all she ever wanted. Did she ever ask about him? Ever want to know how he was doing? Once, Patricia admitted, when he was 3. She sent me a letter through the attorney. She didn't ask for photos or information. She just wanted to know if he was happy and loved. I wrote back and told her that he was the most cherished child I'd ever seen, that his mother, you, loved him with a fierceness that was beautiful to witness. And that was it. We never heard from her again. Something in me softened at that. Rachel hadn't abandoned Danny out of cruelty or indifference. She'd made an impossible choice out of love, wanting to give her child a life she couldn't provide. And she'd chosen me to be his mother. That realization didn't erase the betrayal, but it added a layer of complexity to it. This wasn't a simple story of deception. It was a story of imperfect people making difficult choices, trying to do right in a situation where there were no perfect answers. Danny came home that evening glowing with pride. He'd scored 2 goals at practice, and his coach had told him he was improving every day. He demonstrated his moves in the living room, narrating his own play-by-play, and Mark and I sat on the couch watching him, our hands almost touching but not quite. Did you see that, Mom? Did you see? Danny's face was radiant with joy. I saw it, baby. You're amazing, and he was. He was amazing and beautiful and entirely, completely mine. Not because of biology or DNA or genetic markers, but because I had chosen him, and he had chosen me, every single day for 11 years. That night, after Danny went to bed, Mark and I sat in our bedroom in the dark. We hadn't really talked since that first awful conversation, just exchanged necessary information about schedules and logistics. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said into the darkness. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. I know, Mark replied. I don't expect you to. I don't know if I'd forgive me either. But I don't want to lose our family. I continued. I don't want Danny to grow up in a broken home because of choices we made. So I'm willing to try, to go to counseling, to work on rebuilding trust. But you have to promise me, no more lies, ever, about anything. I promise, Mark said, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah, I promise you. No more secrets. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a start. 6 months have passed since that day in the dentist's office. 6 months of therapy, both individual and couples counseling. 6 months of difficult conversations, tears, and slow, painful healing. Mark and I are not the same as we were. We probably never will be. But we're learning to build something new, a relationship based on the truth instead of the comfortable fiction we'd been living. Danny had the tooth, extracted by a specialist, who was kind and patient and asked no questions about the unusual dental history. We told Danny it was a special tooth, one that had been with him since he was born, and that made him feel unique and special rather than strange. We haven't told him the full truth yet. He's still only 11, still young enough that the complexity of his origins would be more confusing than enlightening. But we have a plan. When he's older, when he's mature enough to understand, we'll sit him down and tell him the whole story. About Mark's mistake, about Rachel's choice, about the adoption. We'll tell him that he was wanted and loved from the very beginning. Even if the path to our family was unconventional, Patricia has become a more present grandmother, letting down some of those careful walls she'd maintained for years. I think she feels relieved that the secret is finally out, that she no longer has to guard every word. She and I have had several long conversations about Rachel, about Danny's genetic history, about the things he might want to know someday. She's given me letters that Rachel wrote during her pregnancy, journals where she expressed her hopes and fears for her son. When Danny is ready, these will be gifts I can give him, pieces of the woman who gave him life. I've thought a lot about Rachel over these months. I used to feel threatened by her, by the biological connection she shares with Danny that I never will. But I've come to see her differently now. She made the most selfless choice a mother can make. She looked at her circumstances honestly and decided that love meant giving her child the best chance, even if that meant not raising him herself. And she chose me. Out of all the possible parents in the world, she chose me to be Danny's mother. That's a gift I'll never take for granted. The other day, Danny came home from school upset. One of his classmates had been bragging about how his family tree project proved he was related to some famous historical figure, and it had sparked a discussion about genetics and heredity. "Mom," Danny asked me that evening, "do you think I'll look like Dad when I grow up? Because some of the kids at school say I don't really look like either of you." My heart stopped. This was the moment I'd been dreading, the question I knew would come eventually, but hoped would wait a few more years. I took a breath and chose my words carefully. "Danny, you look exactly like who you're meant to be, like yourself, and that's perfect. But what about genetics?" He pressed. "In science, we learned that kids get half their genes from their mom and half from their dad. So shouldn't I look like a combination of you guys?" Mark and I exchanged glances. We'd discussed this scenario in therapy, practiced what we might say. But now that the moment was here, my carefully rehearsed words fled. "Danny," Mark said gently, "what makes someone your parent? Is it just biology or is it something more?" Danny thought about it. "Well, I guess it's who takes care of you, who loves you." "Exactly," I said. "And regardless of genetics or what you look like, we are your parents. We have been since the day you were born. That's never going to change." He seemed satisfied with that answer for now. But I know the questions will come again, will get more specific and harder to deflect. And when that time comes, we'll be ready to tell him everything. I've learned something profound through all of this. Family isn't about perfection. It's not about following the traditional path or maintaining a flawless facade. It's about choosing each other every single day. It's about showing up even when it's hard, about forgiveness and grace, and the courage to be vulnerable with the people we love. What Mark did was wrong. The deception, the lies, the years of hiding the truth, all of it was wrong. But Danny wasn't wrong. Our family, complicated and messy and built on mistakes as it is, isn't wrong. Love, I've discovered, is big enough to hold both those truths at the same time. I look at my son now, and yes, I see things I didn't see before. The shape of his nose that doesn't match either of ours. The way his ears sit, the curve of his smile, the color of his hair in certain light. These are Rachel's gifts to him, chromosomes and proteins, and inherited traits that tell the story of where he came from. But I also see the boy who calls me when he's scared, who saves the last cookie for me because he knows they're my favorite, who still holds my hand when we cross the street, even though he pretends he's too old for it. That's not genetics. That's relationship. That's love built moment by moment, year by year, choice by choice. And that makes him mine just as much as if I'd carried him in my body for 9 months, maybe more, because I choose him. Every day I choose him. The tooth is gone now, extracted and long disposed of. But its secret remains, a reminder that the truth will always find a way to surface. You can bury it, hide it, try to erase it, but eventually it will reveal itself, and when it does, you have a choice. You can let that truth destroy you, or you can let it transform you. I chose transformation. Our family looks different now. We're more careful with each other, more intentional about honesty. We're learning to communicate in ways we never had to before, to speak uncomfortable truths instead of comfortable lies. It's harder than the life we had before, but it's also more real, more authentic, more whole. And when I tuck Danny into bed at night, when he wraps his arms around my neck and says, "I love you, Mom," I don't feel the shadow of doubt or deception anymore. I just feel grateful. Grateful for this child who is mine, grateful for this messy, imperfect family we've built, grateful for the chance to love someone this completely, because in the end, that's what matters. Not how we became a family, but that we are one. I started this story by telling you about a tooth that wouldn't fall out, about an X-ray that revealed more than we expected. But this was never really about dentistry or genetics or even secrets. It was about the choices we make when faced with impossible situations, about the lies we tell ourselves in the name of protection, about the courage it takes to face the truth and the grace it takes to forgive. My family is built on a foundation of mistakes and deception, but it's also built on love so fierce it transcends biology, on commitment that survives betrayal, on hope that refuses to give up even when everything falls apart. And maybe that's the most human thing of all. We're all imperfect people trying our best to love each other well. We all carry secrets, make mistakes, hurt the people we care about most. But we also get up every day and try again. We choose forgiveness. We choose each other. That baby tooth taught me something I never expected. Sometimes the truth that sets you free is also the truth that breaks your heart. But a broken heart can heal, and when it does, it's often stronger than before. So I ask you, have you ever discovered a truth that changed everything you thought you knew? Have you ever had to choose between comfortable lies and difficult honesty? And if you did, what did you choose? Because in the end, we're all just trying to figure out how to be human together, how to build families and relationships that can hold the weight of our imperfections. And that, I think, is what makes us beautiful. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think or feel or question, please subscribe for more real-life stories that explore the complexity of being human, of loving imperfectly, of finding hope even in the midst of heartbreak, because we all have stories to tell. And sometimes sharing them is the first step toward healing. Thank you for listening to mine.